Welcome back, everyone. All right, so these questions were asked yesterday. That's the 29th of October. So they're pretty fresh. All right, let's start with part one. Do you like fishing? I've never been fishing. I know it sounds strange, because I live in a city that's by the sea and we have a lot of lakes as well. But I've never been fishing. I think it's just because it's not really something we do here. I mean, obviously, I grew up watching a lot of movies and, TV shows. And okay, you clearly know what fishing is. I mean, yeah, okay, people do it, but it's never really caught on. And I don't know, maybe it's just because it's considered something that you do as a part of your occupation. So yeah, maybe that's why. But I think it's maybe kind of cruel as well, because I read this quote. I mean, I had no idea what fishing was really like, and I read this quote from Joaquin Phoenix, and he described how his family would go boating and, they would try and fish. And once he saw this fish just like being hit across the side of the boat to, kill it. And that was, I mean, reading that, it really made me feel sad. So, I mean, I'm quite open to experiences, but I don't think I would really do that, if I was given the opportunity. It just doesn't sound very good. Why do people like to fish? Well, I mean, obviously, it looks like it's a relaxing activity to do with your family. I've heard a lot of, people say, and I've read a lot, of course, about how it's a family activity, and a lot of men like to teach their sons how to fish. It's like, just something you do to bond with your family. A lot of people when they go fishing, their goal isn't really to catch a fish. It's just to sit there, maybe drink a couple beers or something, and that's how they spend their leisure time. And when you present it that way, it actually does sound kind of relaxing, I guess, to some people. Personally, not something I would like to try, but yeah, you know what, to each his own. What kind of fishing is done in your country? Where I live, it's not really a pastime or a hobby. It's really just a commercial activity. So we have, of course, big name brands that sell fish, but we have a very strong local community of fishermen and fisherwomen. And for them, it's essentially that's, how they earn their bread and butter. So yeah, I don't really know a lot about, how they catch fish and stuff. I mean, I've seen fish dry though. I mean, there's this place in a suburb close to where I used to go to college where, you have a beach, and if you go further ahead, you also have like these little homes of the fishermen and fisherwomen. And after they catch their day's fish, they will just hang it on like this net kind of thing. I don't know exactly what the process is, but I'm guessing they dry them or something, I guess. I mean, I don't know much about fishing. Do you eat fish? As you may have guessed from my responses, no. Um, I did try fish once. That was, I think, a couple years ago by now. It was at a place where I used to work. My boss was a really nice woman. She would often feed us, during lunchtime, and she once offered me some fish with rice, and I was like, why not? And so I went ahead and tried it, and to be honest with you, the taste was a little bit it was kind of different, not something I'm used to. I didn't really enjoy the texture and the mouthfeel a whole lot, so I would probably not really venture out to eat fish again. Although I have a lot of friends who love eating fish, but I've never really understood why. I mean, a lot of my friends also like eating sushi, which again, I've never really tried it, but the idea of eating like cold, wet fish. It's just not palatable to me. Would you like to keep fish as a pet? Well, I mean, honestly, no. I hate to say it like this, but they're boring. You can't hug a fish, you can't pet it. I used to go to school at this place where they had this huge aquarium, and it was fun, to be completely honest. I mean, I liked, looking at all the fishes and, just staring at them for a few minutes before I had to go back home. But they were really boring. All the kids would try and, poke at the glass and get their attention and stuff, but they never really did anything interesting. They're lovely to look at, but I think they're better off, in the wild. I don't think we should really keep fishes as pets. Okay, part two. Describe a risk that you took. You should say what was the risk? What fears did you have? What were the positive impacts of taking that risk, and explain how you felt about it? So I've been feeding local dogs for quite some time now, and last year I realized that they also have to be, sterilized and neutered. And I had no idea where to begin because obviously you can't just take them to a private vet. That would be quite expensive. But I mean, obviously I did want to help. And so, we have this local animal birth control program that's sponsored by the local government. And so I called the helpline and I told them all the details, that there were these, they're essentially puppies. They were like 11 months old, but it was time for them to be neutered. Otherwise, they would have kids. And so they told me they'd come next week. And in the meanwhile, I was just reading about the whole thing, what they do and how much time it takes and what I need to give them and stuff like that. And then I kept reading people's experiences, and they would tell me things like, I sent my dogs, they never came back, or they released my dogs in some other suburb and, stuff happened. And I was honestly getting really scared. But at the same time, I couldn't risk having these puppies deliver more puppies and those puppies delivering even more puppies, right? Because I mean, their life is essentially, it's a risk. You never know what might happen when you're not around them, right? So anyway, the van came, and I had to lift each of my puppies and put them in the van, and I was so scared. And my mom was there as well, and both of us were kind of crying because we'd never done anything of the sort before, and we had no idea what to expect. So we told them, please take care of our dogs. We really love them. They might be street dogs, but we really love them. And I still tear up thinking about it because I'd never done anything of the sort before. And they would have been gone for 7 days, and so for 7 days we didn't see our dogs, and it felt so strange, and we were so scared about them. Thankfully, they called me on the 8th day, and they said, we're coming at 3 p.m, so please be ready with your food and everything, so the dogs can see you and they can feel safe. And they came, and the moment they opened the gate, I could see all of them, and they were so happy and excited to see us. And I can't describe the joy that I had when I finally got to see them after such a long time. And the great thing is they're such healthy dogs because we got them sterilized at the right age while they were young, so they never had any complications, never had any issues. And I'm so happy I did that because that gave me the confidence to go and have more of them neutered in that way. So it was a big learning experience for me, but yeah, eventually everything turned out well, and I'm so glad it did. Right, let's come to part three. Do parents usually warn children about taking risks? I mean, of course they do. I can't think of what kind of parent wouldn't do that. It's kind of their job, right? But young kids are probably more likely to listen, I guess. But teenagers would probably feel like they're being, unfairly restrained. How teenagers can be. They can be quite rebellious. I mean, I was rebellious as well. But in most cases anyway, what a parent, warns you about is always something that they're concerned about. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to be a parent because, when you're young, you think, oh, it's just, why are you telling me about the same thing over and over again? Like, yeah, I know I shouldn't accept candy from strangers, and I shouldn't get into people's cars and stuff like that. But when you grow older and you think that you could have a kid someday, and you think, oh, wow, I would also warn them, right? So yeah. Who takes more risks, the young or the old? Obviously, young people take more risks. They have, just a greater capacity, we call that a risk appetite, where, well, it's more of an investment term, but obviously it applies to life as well, because when you're young, you can recover. If you take a risk and it doesn't work out well, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. You can still recover from it. You can bounce back, But when you're older and you take a risk, let's say you start a business when you're like 50 years old, something goes wrong and you end up losing a bunch of money or something, it would be difficult to recover at that kind of age compared to, let's say, if you were 20, you started a business, you went broke, something happened, whatever happens, you can recover from it quite easily, compared to a 50-year-old. So yeah, obviously, I mean, I feel like when you're young is the right age to be taking risks. Why do children take more risks? I think that's because they're kind of naturally fearless, or maybe it's just that they haven't really experienced life, so they don't know. For example, if I, run at full speed, I might hit my head across something. And a lot of kids are just, I don't know why they're such daredevils. I mean, my friend once told me a story about how she used to live somewhere else and they lived on the second floor. And once she decided to just I don't know exactly what she did. I think she walked out on like the balcony or something and she just like jumped. There was like this awning or something and she jumped on top of that just because she wanted to find out what would happen, and she fell. It was just like the second floor, so there wasn't much, she did get like some, I think, a sprain or something, but nothing much happened. And I don't know why. I mean, as a kid, I was never, I never took any risks. I was always a very, very, very scaredy cat. But I've seen so many kids. I work with kids, and so they don't tend to fear anything. I really don't know why. Again, my hypothesis is just that they just haven't experienced life, so they don't know. They're not afraid, right? For example, if let's say you're chopping vegetables or something, you think, oh, I better not hurt myself, otherwise, that's gonna be quite expensive to go to the doctor and get everything done, and it's gonna be a huge, waste of my time as well. But as a kid, you don't really think so far into the future. I think that's why. Because kids don't really think about the future. They live in the here and the now. Why are some people afraid of risks? It's, as a person who doesn't like risks, I feel like I'm pretty well equipped to answer this question. The thing is that, it's the great unknown. You don't know what could happen. What if it's just this fear? What if something goes horribly wrong? And what if I can't recover from it, right? I mean, one thing I wouldn't want to feel is regret. And I have a few regrets. I mean, I've lived life a little bit. That's really the worst thing, because you think that, oh, if only I hadn't taken that risk, life would have been okay, or this specific aspect of life would have been okay, right? You keep thinking about that, and you keep like beating yourself up over it. That's really the problem. I mean, when you take a risk and things go well, you feel really proud of yourself, right? Like, I've taken a few risks which actually ended up doing very well. Just like I spoke about the sterilization thing, I was super afraid of running ads, but I tried it and it worked brilliantly. And so obviously, when you take a risk, though, it has to be a calculated risk. It can't just be like just doing something randomly. Is it possible to avoid taking any risks in life? No. It's really, there's no way of, that you can live life without having taken any kind of risk. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a financial risk, but it can be any kind of decision that you make that could impact your life in any way, whether, minor or major. Should I go to this university? Should I take up this job? Should I move out? Should I stay here? Where should I go? I have this offer. Should I take it up? It can be as simple as, should I sneak out of home to attend a party? Really, it can be anything, but I don't think you can avoid it. And, not all risks are the same. I think that, we should encourage kids and teenagers to take minor risks, as long as they're being monitored to ensure they're not doing anything dangerous. I think risks can be good. You need to be able to take risks, and it doesn't matter if the outcome is good or bad. You need to learn how to deal with that, because that's an important part of adulthood.